Let's get right into it. Number 10. Bloodletting. Imagine feeling a little tired, maybe slightly feverish, and the official medical response is, "Great news, we're going to remove a significant amount of your blood." Not test it. Not clean it. Just remove it. Because obviously the problem is that you're too full of blood. Medieval logic was undefeated. For thousands of years, bloodletting was considered the gold standard of healthcare. Bloodletting. Anxiety? Bloodletting. Stubbed your toe? Probably bloodletting just to be safe. Doctors believed your body was governed by 4 humors, and if one of them got out of balance, the solution was to open a vein and let the vibes drain out with the plasma. Picture yourself lying there while a guy with zero understanding of germs confidently slices your arm, watching your blood pour into a bowl like he's tasting soup. He nods seriously, because the darker the blood looked, the more toxic it supposedly was. Congratulations, you are now medically fascinating and dangerously lightheaded. The best part is that people didn't just accept this. They requested it. Wealthy patients would schedule routine bloodlettings the way you schedule a dentist appointment. "Yes, I'll take the deluxe seasonal bleed, really cleanse my system." Kings did it. Popes did it. George Washington did it, and spoiler alert, it did not go well. From a modern perspective, it's horrifyingly obvious what was happening. You remove blood pressure drops, oxygen delivery tanks, and suddenly the patient feels weak, dizzy, and sometimes dies. But instead of thinking, maybe we shouldn't do this, doctors went, the illness is leaving the body. Basically, your immune system was already struggling, and medicine decided to mug it in an alley and steal its lunch money. Number 9. Mercury medicine. You know mercury as that shiny metal you're not supposed to touch, inhale, or even look at too confidently. Historically, people looked at mercury and said, yes, that goes inside the body. For centuries, mercury was prescribed as a treatment for everything from constipation to syphilis. The logic was simple and deeply cursed. Mercury makes you salivate, sweat, vomit, and poop aggressively, so clearly it's purging evil from your body. If your organs are panicking, that means it's working. Imagine taking medicine and within hours your mouth is flooding like a broken faucet, your teeth are loosening, and your brain is slowly becoming soup. Doctors would see this and say, "Excellent response." Patients weren't healing. They were dissolving. One of the most disturbing uses was in syphilis treatment. Mercury didn't cure the disease, but it did make patients so sick that sometimes the symptoms appeared to improve. Not because the infection was gone, but because the body was too busy surviving mercury poisoning to put on a rash. The phrase, "mad as a hatter," actually comes from mercury exposure. Hat makers inhaled mercury vapors and developed tremors, hallucinations, and personality changes. Meanwhile, doctors were out here prescribing it intentionally, like a prank no one stopped. From today's standpoint, it's painfully ironic. Mercury damages the nervous system, kidneys, and brain. But back then, visible suffering was mistaken for progress. If the treatment hurt, it had to be doing something useful. In other words, your doctor wasn't curing you. He was just speedrunning organ failure and calling it detox. Number 8. Mummy medicine. At some point, humanity collectively decided that the best way to achieve health was to eat dead people from ancient Egypt. No, that is not an exaggeration. For hundreds of years in Europe, powdered mummies were considered a legitimate medical treatment. People believed that mummified remains contained life-preserving properties, and if you consumed them, you could absorb that ancient vitality. Headaches, internal bleeding, epilepsy, just add mummy. Pharmacies sold mumia in jars, ground up like a spice. The wealthier you were, the more authentic your mummy powder was supposed to be. Poor people got random corpses. Rich people got premium pharaoh-flavored medicine. The irony is that most of these mummies weren't even Egyptian. They were executed criminals, plague victims, or whoever was available, dried out and sold as ancient relics. You weren't ingesting mystical history. You were ingesting some guy named Greg who died 3 weeks ago. The psychological comfort was real, though. Ancient Egypt was seen as wise, advanced, and mysterious. So people assumed their dead bodies must be medically powerful. This is the same logic that makes people today buy crystals, except with significantly more cannibalism. From a health standpoint, it did absolutely nothing beneficial. At best, it was inert. At worst, it introduced toxins and bacteria into already sick bodies. But belief is a powerful thing, and if enough people agree something is medicine, it becomes medicine by social pressure alone. Basically, people weren't healing themselves. They were just snacking on history and hoping for the best. Number 7. Trepanation. Imagine having a headache so bad that someone suggests drilling a hole in your skull. And instead of running away, you nod thoughtfully and say, "Yes, that seems reasonable." Trepanation is the ancient practice of cutting or drilling a hole into the human skull. Not metaphorically. Literally. Archaeologists have found skulls from thousands of years ago with clean, deliberate holes carved into them. And here's the creepy part. Many of those skulls show signs of healing. Meaning people survived this. Because back then, mental illness, seizures, migraines, and mood swings were often blamed on evil spirits trapped inside your head. And what's the obvious solution when your brain is haunted? You give the ghost an exit door. Picture yourself lying still while someone scrapes into your skull with a stone tool. No anesthesia. No antibiotics. Just vibes and questionable spiritual confidence. The logic was that once the hole was made, the pressure, or the demon, could escape. What's unsettling is that trepanation wasn't just ancient history. It popped up again in the 1960s among certain fringe groups who believed drilling into the skull increased blood flow and expanded consciousness. Essentially, DIY enlightenment with a power drill. From a modern neuroscience perspective, this is horrifying. The skull exists for a reason. It's protective armor for the most complicated organ in your body. Puncturing it without medical necessity risks infection, brain damage, or death. But in cultures without germ theory or neurology, it seemed practical. Your brain glitches once, and instead of therapy or medication, someone suggests home renovation. Basically, when people didn't understand mental health, they tried to ventilate it. Number 6. Tobacco cures everything. Today, tobacco comes with warning labels the size of small novels. But there was a time when doctors recommended cigarettes for asthma. Asthma, the condition where breathing is already difficult. In the 16th and 17th centuries, tobacco was considered a miracle plant. It was used to treat headaches, stomach problems, toothaches, and even the plague. Some physicians believed tobacco smoke could cleanse the body and ward off disease. Others used tobacco enemas, because apparently the only thing worse than smoking is reverse smoking. Imagine being sick, barely able to breathe, and your treatment plan is to inhale more smoke. The logic was that tobacco stimulated the body. It made you cough, sweat, and feel something dramatic. And as we've learned, dramatic reactions were historically mistaken for healing. There were even smoke kits along rivers in Europe. If someone nearly drowned, bystanders would blow tobacco smoke into their rectum to revive them. CPR? We're going with barbecue resurrection. The psychology here is fascinating. Tobacco produces a noticeable physical effect. Nicotine rush, increased heart rate, mild euphoria. So people felt different, and different meant better. Immediate sensation tricked them into believing long-term benefit. Now we know tobacco damages the lungs, heart, blood vessels, and basically everything it touches. But at the time, it was cutting-edge medicine. Doctors in lab coats confidently endorsed it in advertisements. It was science. Official science. Your lungs were trying to survive, and medicine said, "Have you tried setting them on fire?" In short, humanity once looked at a plant that causes cancer and said, "Ah yes. Wellness." Number 5. Radium beauty. If glowing in the dark sounds like a superpower, early 20th century society would agree with you. They just didn't realize it was a slow-motion horror movie. After radium was discovered, it became a symbol of modern science and vitality. So naturally, companies started putting it in everything. Water, toothpaste, face creams, chocolate. Because what says healthy glow, like radioactive decay? There were beauty products promising that radium would rejuvenate your skin, energize your cells, and give you that luminous complexion. Technically, they were right about the glow. Just not in the way you'd hope. One infamous product was radioactive water marketed as a health tonic. People drank it daily, convinced it boosted energy and longevity. Instead, it quietly damaged their bones and organs. One wealthy industrialist consumed so much radium water that his jaw literally disintegrated. Doctors described it in disturbingly calm terms, as if radioactive facial collapse was just an unfortunate side effect. The radium girls, factory workers who painted watch dials with glowing paint, were told it was safe. They even licked their brushes to keep the tips sharp. The glow was beautiful. The consequences were devastating: bone cancer, anemia, horrific internal decay. The reason people believed in it? Radiation was new, mysterious, and scientific. It felt futuristic. And when something feels advanced, we assume it's beneficial. It's the same instinct that makes you trust a gadget more if it has more blinking lights. From a biological standpoint, radiation damages DNA. It doesn't rejuvenate cells, it mutates them. But early optimism and marketing hype drowned out caution. So instead of anti-aging, people got anti-living. Basically, they wanted a healthy glow and accidentally chose nuclear. Number 4. Lobotomy therapy. There was a time when the cutting edge of mental health treatment involved cutting into your brain and hoping for the best. In the mid-20th century, lobotomies were marketed as a miracle solution for depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, mood swings, and, let's be honest, anyone who was inconveniently emotional. The procedure involved severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex. Sometimes with surgical precision. Sometimes with something that looked suspiciously like an ice pick. Yes, an ice pick. Doctors would slide it through the eye socket, wiggle it around to disrupt neural pathways, and call it progress. Patients often came out calmer, quieter, less distressed. Also less everything. Personality dulled. Emotions flattened. Initiative disappeared. Imagine your brain as a complex corporate office full of departments communicating constantly. A lobotomy was essentially firing half the staff and cutting the phone lines. Sure, there's less chaos. There's also no productivity. The disturbing part is how celebrated it was. One of the pioneers even won a Nobel Prize. Hospitals performed tens of thousands of these procedures. Families requested them. Society preferred a docile relative over a struggling one. From a neurological perspective, the frontal lobe is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, personality, and complex thinking. Damaging it doesn't cure mental illness. It suppresses the visible symptoms by dampening the person. It was less healing and more turning down the volume on a human being. Basically, if your brain was on fire emotionally, medicine decided the solution was to unplug the smoke alarm by smashing the wiring. Number 3. Arsenic tonics. Arsenic is the classic poison. It's in murder mysteries. It's in crime documentaries. It's the villain of the periodic table. And yet, people once took it voluntarily as a health supplement. In the 18th and 19th centuries, small doses of arsenic were marketed as tonics to improve complexion, boost energy, and increase appetite. Some people even believed it enhanced beauty. Pale skin with a slight flush? Perfect. Just the right amount of toxic glow. There were communities in Austria known as arsenic eaters, who consumed tiny doses regularly, claiming it strengthened their bodies and improved stamina. And here's the unsettling twist: they built up a tolerance. So they didn't immediately drop dead, which only reinforced the idea that it worked. From a physiological standpoint, arsenic interferes with cellular respiration. It basically sabotages your cell's ability to produce energy. That energized feeling? It was your body in mild crisis mode. The reason it sometimes appeared beneficial is because low-dose toxins can create short-term stimulation. Your system kicks into overdrive trying to compensate. Heart rate rises. Metabolism shifts. You feel something happening. And as history repeatedly proves, something happening gets confused with something helpful. But arsenic accumulates. Over time, it damages organs, skin, nerves. Long-term users often developed lesions, weakness, and neurological problems. Beauty comes at a price, apparently payable in internal decay. In short, people were microdosing poison and calling it self-care. Number 2. Self-flagellation for health. Pain equals purification. At least, that was the idea. In various cultures and religious movements, self-flagellation, whipping oneself, was believed to cleanse the body and soul. During outbreaks of plague, groups of people would march through towns publicly whipping themselves, convinced that suffering would drive away disease. Imagine thinking the solution to a bacterial infection is to add open wounds. The psychology is brutally simple. When disaster strikes and you feel powerless, doing something extreme feels better than doing nothing. Physical pain creates a sense of control. I am actively fighting this. Even if what you're fighting is a microbe that does not care about your dramatic gestures. There's also a biological twist. Pain triggers endorphins, your body's natural opioids. So after intense whipping, some participants experienced a kind of euphoric calm. That relief was interpreted as spiritual or physical cleansing. Meanwhile, they were spreading infection through shared wounds and crowded rituals. From a medical standpoint, open cuts in unsanitary conditions are invitations for bacteria. The body doesn't interpret self-inflicted injury as healing. It interprets it as an emergency. Basically, people tried to cure illness by declaring war on themselves. Number 1. Drinking urine. And now we arrive at the ritual that refuses to die, urine therapy. Yes, throughout history, and even today, some people believe drinking urine can detoxify the body, cure diseases, and boost immunity. The reasoning? It's natural. It came from you. Therefore, it must contain something beneficial. Here's what urine actually is: a waste product. Your kidneys filter your blood, removing excess salts, toxins, and metabolic byproducts. Urine is the bag of stuff your body specifically decided to eject. Drinking it is like taking out the trash and then bringing it back inside because maybe you threw something valuable away. Supporters argue that urine contains vitamins, hormones, and antibodies. That's technically true, in trace amounts your body didn't need. Reintroducing them doesn't magically amplify their effects. Your digestive system breaks them down like everything else. In survival situations, drinking urine can actually worsen dehydration due to its salt content. In everyday life, it's mostly just unnecessary. You already have functioning kidneys doing their job. The appeal is understandable, though. It's free. It's accessible. It feels rebellious against mainstream medicine. And like many historical health rituals, it gives people a sense of agency over their bodies. But biologically, it's just recycling waste and hoping your organs applaud. So while humanity has made incredible medical progress, we've also drilled holes in skulls, swallowed radioactive water, eaten mummies, inhaled smoke, injected mercury, and sipped our own bodily leftovers in the name of wellness. And the scariest part? At the time, all of it felt completely reasonable. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.